everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress, and welcome to today's webinar, CodeRush for Roslyn Preview, presented by Chief Scientist of the DevExpress IDE team, Mark Miller, and CodeRush evangelist, Rory Becker. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Mark and Rory.
Thanks a lot, Amanda. Rory, how are you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, mate, not too bad. And yourself?
All right. I am doing pretty well. That's that's our neurotypical handoff right there at the beginning. Now that we're in the slides here, I'll give you a sense of kind of what's going on here. So we have CodeRush Classic. It was previously known as just CodeRush. It's currently in version 15.1. That's its version number, and we have a release of that that's out right now. But we have essentially stopped development on new features in this product. We're still supporting it. And fixing bugs, that sort of thing. Has the same feature set that you've known for years. However, there's no support for C# or VB14, and there's unlikely to be support ever introduced into CodeRush Classic for new language features as we move forward in time. So we're essentially, we have CodeRush Classic essentially put on hold. All the developers are putting everything they've got into CodeRush for Roslyn. We're giving that a 1.0 version number for right now. It's in a preview state. I'll give you a sense of how to get to that by the end of the presentation. A portion of the feature set has been ported. I estimate somewhere between a quarter to a third of it if we're looking at numbers of features, but a lot of that is a lot of the features that have been ported are big chunks of the engine that in itself doesn't count as a single feature, but it's a huge amount of effort. So a lot of that's been ported over. And it has full support for C#6 and VB14. There are some architectural benefits. You may have heard us discuss these, and I'll show you some proof of that today. One of them is a significant reduction in memory, and especially in solutions with lots of C# and VB code. So if that's what you're working on, if you have large solutions and you've had memory problems in the past, you're going to see gains right there. We also have performance increases as well, especially on solution load time. So when you're loading big solutions, they load a lot faster. Also, inside the environment, in general, everything feels snappier. So those are the architectural benefits. With regards to the features, this is kind of a categorization of the features we have. We've got navigation and selection features, a lot of the basic pieces, fundamental features of CodeRush that are relied upon by bigger, larger features. Those have been ported over, including markers, bookmarks, selecting, embedding, expanding, reduced. Multi-select is also in. Tab to next reference is there. Templates are almost entirely ported over. There are a few smart templates that are not done yet, but those will be coming soon. Duplicate line is there. Member organizer is there for C# currently only. So all these features are C# and VB unless we specify only one, in which case that means the VB1 is anticipated, expected soon. So, so that's what's happening there with the C# with the member organizer. The test runner is currently supporting NUnit, XUnit, and MSpec. More will be coming. Debug Visualizer currently only supports C#. We've got IntelliRush for both VB, C#, and we have 3 tool windows: code coverage, references, and the test runner. I'll show you at least 2 of these later on. Or maybe rephrase that. I'll show you at least 1 of these later on, maybe 2. We've got some refactorings and code providers. And this is the list of code providers and refactorings that we have ported. There are about another 200 or so to go. However, the good news is that those are going to be faster than, well, I don't know if faster is the right word, but those additional 200 or so are anticipated to come relatively quickly, primarily because the hard work porting over the engine is all done. That sort of thing. The one thing to keep in mind, though, when we're porting over refactorings, we also have to not only port over the refactoring code to the new architecture, but we also have to port over the test cases. So there's a substantial amount of work to ensure quality is being kept all the way through. So here's an example of memory reduction. I've got, it's hard to see, but CodeRush is this thin blue line right here. And I've got a competing product over the side here. I can't say the name of that competing product, but this competing product has stated that they are not going to support or exploit the Roslyn engine. So they are doing what CodeRush Classic is doing, and what CodeRush, I want to say what CodeRush used to do, which is parse all your source code, keep it all in memory, while Visual Studio was doing the same thing. And so here's the results of these two right here with no solution open. When we open up the open source project .NET open auth, CodeRush jumps up, gets another 4 megabytes to be able to handle that, whereas the competition needs about 120 to go in and handle that. When we open up a larger open source project called Orchard, you can see we go up to 13 megabytes, and the competition's up around 200 megabytes. And while I would love to say, hey, this keeps going in this trend, it's not actually true. It depends on the nature of the solution, on what kind of files you have. For example, if we open up the source code to Roslyn, the competition actually drops 2 megabytes, and CodeRush jumps up because there are many more files right here that are going on here. And there may be other things going on as well in terms of the competition, right? They may be caching things out, which may show itself as performance hits, right, when you want to do something. So there may be some other things going on here, but I'm not so worried about this, but really this is what I want to show you, that blue kind of thing. That's what we're seeing there. As we add more features, we'll expect this to grow a little bit, but we're not going to expect it to grow a lot. So the amount of memory that CodeRush is taking is significantly less than what it used to. With regard to solution open times, right here, so here's that .NET open auth right here, opening up the solution, so we're just double-clicking on the solution in the recent history list, and then timing it. Visual Studio takes about 6.5 seconds, and CodeRush adds another half second to it. So it's barely noticeable at all. And by the way, Rory, if that's your typing I'm hearing, just mute your microphone when you're typing and turn it back on when you're about to talk, if you don't mind. And then over here, the competition's over at about 11.5 seconds here, so that's the load over there. To open up Orchard, you can see there it is right there. CodeRush takes about 2 seconds. To open up the Roslyn source code, CodeRush adds about a second and a half. So again, this is really what we're focused on. We're focused on keeping the hit of CodeRush in terms of time for opening a solution to be very, very small, like 2 seconds or less. That's what our goal is, even on very, very large projects. So you're seeing significant performance improvements as well. Okay, now I'm going to show it in action. By the way, Roy, I went through those slides pretty quickly. If anybody's got questions during that time, just put them in the chat window there. Rory will help answering those, and Rory, you can stop me as well. We can answer questions that way.
No problem. One thing I thought was probably just worth pointing out, Mark, is that back in those graphs that you had there, as more and more larger solutions got opened, obviously the competitor goes up and up in most cases. Also, Studio is gaining a rather large amount of memory usage, for example. However, all of the benefits that Roslyn gets, even after their first release, improvements that work within Visual Studio, we will take immediate benefit from those as well. So although we're keeping ourselves thin, any of the benefits underneath us will also add to the effective benefits that we're able to pass on to our own users. So actually, we're going to be winning from day one.
Yeah, this is a really good point. So it's kind of like what happened is we just got rid of the parsing team on the CodeRush team and replaced them with the Visual Studio parsing team. And as an example, one of the things that you have to do when you're dealing with really large solutions, and I suspect our competitors doing this, right, to keep this only at less than 200 when clearly it should be higher, is you cache results out, right? So you store them out on disk and you bring them in when you need them. And the work in making that caching really fast and highly optimized, it takes a lot of skill and a lot of dedicated effort. And what we were noticing when we were first testing out the Roslyn engine is we noticed that the Visual Studio team had managed, I think in most cases, to actually be better than our team at doing that. And so ultimately we were like, okay, because here's the thing, we're both trying to solve the same, or at least in the past, we were both trying to save the same problem, and the same kind of problems come up. What happens when it's too big to fit in memory? That sort of thing. How do we solve that problem? And how do we make the caching really performant? We don't have to solve those problems anymore. We're just going to let Visual Studio do that. And as a result, you're absolutely right. Secondarily, the other benefit that we gain from this, which is kind of interesting, is that as new language features come out, CodeRush automatically instantly gets them. So if you use CodeRush with a future CTP from Microsoft, CodeRush for Roslyn with a future CTP, and there's new language features, CodeRush is automatically not going to break when those come up. It'll continue to work. Now there may be refactorings and things like that that exploit the new language features that are yet to be written, but instantly it should be able to use those new language features, those new features of the language if they're.
That's right, and in the same way as we don't have to duplicate the Visual Studio's parsing of the existing language, we won't have to write additional code to parse the new elements of the new versions of the language as they come up, because we'll just take direct advantage of Roslyn's own parsing and access the results of their solution.
Yeah, the cool thing about that is we dedicate more resources to giving customers the things they need as opposed to just catching up with changes that Visual Studio has made or that the language teams have made. So yeah, architecturally it makes a lot of sense to make these moves. So let's look at CodeRush for Roslyn in action right now. I've got 4 instances of Visual Studio 2015 up. And I want to show, but I'll start by showing off some of the refactorings that are in here. So refactorings, the access to refactorings, one of the things that we've done is as we've come in here, as we've integrated into Roslyn, is we've also decided to piggyback onto Roslyn's UI. So instead of having 2 different refactoring menus, you're now going to only have 1. That also means that we're going to use their shortcuts for accessing it. Now you can rebind the shortcuts if you want to, but for now it's Control plus the dot. So if I hit Control dot, I will then bring up the menu. Now right now you'll see that we have, this is a Visual Studio refactoring and this is a CodeRush refactoring. Right now we don't have any branding in here yet, but we intend to put branding so you'll see clearly whether it's a CodeRush feature or not. And so, these are the different refactorings, and here's the one I want to choose, which is combined conditionals. Let me just hit escape so you can see the code out here. It's got these 3 nested conditionals. I'm just going to hit Control dot, choose combined conditionals, and there you can see the preview, what it's going to look like. We're currently using their preview style as well. Now, folks that have heard me talk at conferences know that I'm a big proponent of good UI, and so and when I look at this, I do have some readability. There's some readability issues on here that I want to change and fix and improve. So we're likely to do kind of a combined version of using essentially their UI, but also put the easier to read CodeRush preview hints when it makes sense. Like for example, crossing these out and then showing the result, or maybe doing that right in code, that sort of thing. So there's still some UI questions that we're looking at, working on, and those may come in maybe not in the 1.0 final release of this, but maybe in a 2.0 or something like that. But to choose this, you just go in here and choose combine conditionals like that, and there it is. There's the piece. There's another version of combined conditionals. The last one was nested. These are in parallel right here. We can just hit Control dot on this again, choose combined conditionals again, and there you can see what it's going to do. It's going to take that and turn it to here. One other advantage of going in and piggybacking on the UI that comes with Visual Studio is that we also get this for free. So if you want to come in and preview the changes in a more interactive fashion where you, for example, a refactoring that's making changes in multiple places across your code, you can bring up this window and then click apply on it like that to make the change. Let's go into that. Looks like that didn't apply, so okay, well, that looks like a demo bug, so let's go over here into compress to terminate. We'll show you this one right over here. And so here you can see, again, we've got some CodeRush ones coming up. There's reverse conditional right there, flatten conditional, remove redundant else is in there, and conditional switch, and there's the one I want, compress to ternary expression. So there you go, that's what it does. So those are the refactorings. I just want to show you the templates because the templates are here as well. So if I want to create a new class, I can do that. Call it airplane, for example. So I'm just using the CodeRush templates to do it. I hit enter to come back down. So the experience is very similar. Hit M to create a new method. Call it takeoff, like that. Hit enter. I can add any parameters I want to. Hit enter again to get inside the method. TF gives me a try finally block, FRI gives me a for loop with I as the variable, that sort of thing. So that is what we're looking at with regards to the with the templates. So the templates are there, okay, and let's go over and show. I wanted to show some new features in CodeRush. And so here I'm inside a new application. I've created a Windows application. And if I just hit Control Space, or I just am typing in this and then a dot, I get CodeRush, which is the wrapper we have around IntelliSense. So it's still Visual Studio's engine doing the collection of the items, but CodeRush makes it easier to use. One of the things that you can do is you can resize this list. The other thing you can do is tap Control for options, so I can filter, for example, to see only the properties. Just hit the letter P, and there I can see the properties. But still, I've got a lot of properties, as you can see in this list. So a new feature that we've added is the ability to slice up the hierarchy and see members only from certain elements of the hierarchy. So I just tap the Control key, hit the letter H, and now I can choose which class, for example, I want to look in. So maybe I want to see only what's inside component. So I just hit the number 5. And there I can see what's in component, what's declared there. I can tap Control key again, hit the letter H. Maybe I want to look at control, just its descendant. And now I can start getting a feel for where the weight is in the hierarchy, just by doing this and getting a sense of it.
Just to be clear there, Mark, when you bring up that hierarchy, we've got some numeric hotkeys there, and 0 is always going to be the class that you're actually within at the moment. 1 is naturally its ancestor, its immediate ancestor, its parent, and as you go increasing the numbers up, you go to higher and higher up the ancestry of the current class that you're in. And effectively what this does is you're saying it filters the list to members that are available on that ancestor.
Yes, that's correct. It filters the list to only those in the ancestor. So we want to see what's declared in form. We can just hit the number 1, and there's the list right there. That's everything that's declared in form, and every time you hover over it, you'll see the hint comes up, and you can verify, yes, in fact, it's declared in form. That's what the type reference right there is for. So it's a very nice way to just isolate to a class. Now, what you said is a really good point. You mentioned, right, and I'll bring that up again, you mentioned that the class you're on is always 0. So if you want to see just from this class alone, you can always just hit 0. You can always remember that. If you want to see the parent, it's always that 1. But another thing that you can do is you can include ancestors or descendants. So, for example, if I hold Shift plus the number down, it'll grab all the ancestors. So I want to look at, like, for example, component up, I would hit Shift 5. And if I want to look at, say, form and form 1, I would hit Control plus 1, just like that. So I can slice from one piece up or one piece down and grab all of those.
So by that logic, if I have hit 4 or 5 or shifted 3 or any of these other combinations, I can reset that back to just shift 0, and it will get everything from form 0, form 1, which is where we are, upward inclusive.
Yes. You can also, so just to be clear what Rory just said, because this is something that may not be obvious, but if I'm here and I've previously filtered, by the way, you can see here's the filter right here. Control through form 1 entries are only being shown. Right?
That's good. So you know what you're looking at the moment. That's nice.
Yeah. And if I'm here and I want to revert it to everything, I can either hit this one with the Control key to get all of it down, or this one with the Shift key to get all of it up. Or I can simply hit Escape and bring it up again one more time, and now I've got everything again.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
So that particular set of options resets every time?
Yes, it resets every time. The hierarchy goes to default every time it comes up, and then you can slice once it's up if you need to. And you know, I find slicing is not always needed, but sometimes you're dealing with a hierarchy that's maybe a little unknown, or you're looking for something and you don't know the name, but you kind of have a sense of where it would be declared or what range. And so I find it's useful in those scenarios, right? So for example, control and down might be something that's more interesting to me than component and up in this example right here. I might be looking at things more having to do with display-related kinds of things. Now the other thing you can do too is let's just slice it out to control. So I'm just going to, rather let's do form. So I'm going to grab 1 for form. I hit 1 for form, and there we can see all the entries that are there. So form entries only. Let's go ahead and further do kind of a cross slice. So I'm going to hit the control key, and now let's grab only the properties of the form. So we'll hit the letter P now. And so now we're seeing only properties that are declared in form, the ancestor class. Okay? So it's a very cool way to very quickly narrow down, get a lot of that noise out of the way, and it's used for those times when you're not sure what the name is of the thing you're looking for. Okay? This feature, by the way, is in both, this feature we ported back to CodeRush Classic. So this is like the one exception we made, or one of the few exceptions we made with the 15.1 release where we brought features back that were coming forward. So CodeRush Classic has this feature. Okay? All right, let's switch to another instance of Visual Studio. I'm just going to show the debug visualizer running. And if you haven't seen this before, you'll be pretty excited about it. And if you have, you'll, I guess, be marginally excited about it. So here, as we get into the method, you can see the values of A side and B side are here. They're already shown. If I hit F10 to step in, there it shows me the results of the call to math square root. It's going to be 5 with those values. I can drill down into it like this, see the values. And one of the things it does that's very cool is when I drill into this 9 and I hit the down arrow, watch what it does with the line below it, because it needs to overlap the line, and I've got an option set that says don't hide any code. So when I go down, watch what happens. It just animates it a little bit, makes the line a little bigger that I'm on, and then when I close it, it does the opposite. So that's kind of cool stuff. Another cool feature of it is here I'm inside this method right here, passing in a degrees, latitude, and checking to see what the season is in that. So as soon as I hit this line of code and hit F10, when I get down here, it's going to hide the lines, kind of gray them out a little bit that I'm not going to jump into, and highlight the line of code that I will jump into. So I can see that before I actually hit F10 here and jump into it.
I think it's quite nice as well. CodeRush decides only to move and to highlight stuff like that when it makes the most sense. So, for example, if you look at the top of that switch statement, season is revealed as having the value of spring. But in order to show you that value, it has not decided to move the line underneath anywhere because it knows that there's space available in which to give you that information. So it hasn't had to move the braced block in any way.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty good about that. Now, one of the things I wanted to explain that while Rory was talking, I hit F5 to run. And it went through and made a second call into this method. So I'm now in a second time, okay? And so I can see the old values of where we were here. It was spring before in that previous latitude. I'm just going to hit F10 here, and I'm going to hit F10 here. And now we've changed to fall. You can see the update right there. It's happened to change to fall. And now we can see down here, we see we're dropping into the fall one right there, okay? Hitting F5 to run. Again, there you can see just the pieces you can drill into this. And so you can drill into the there we go, into the different expressions, and it keeps everything in sync, right? So you see, oh, this value came from this bit of code up here. So it's a nice way to explore. I don't have to take my eyes away from the code. I don't have to bring up, reach for the mouse, bring up a watch window or anything along those lines. All right, let's go over to my last one right here. And this, I've got the source code to glimpse up here. And I wanted to show you the code coverage feature of the product. So code coverage, actually, I said I would maybe show you 2 windows, and I'll bring up the second one. So by the way, we're with CodeRush for Roslyn, we're creating our own CodeRush menu. It used to be hidden in the DevExpress menu. Now that, by the way, it's possible to load both CodeRush Classic and CodeRush for Roslyn at the same time. I'll be releasing blog posts on how to do that. Right now, I don't have CodeRush Classic up and loaded. So we go into the CodeRush menu, into Windows, and we can bring up the test runner. And so for the test runner, we've added 2 new buttons, and they're these 2 right here. This button runs all tests with code coverage, and this one runs the selected tests with coverage. And once you've run your tests with coverage, the code coverage window will populate. And the code coverage window tells you what areas of your code are covered by unit tests. And you can, I can click here, for example, and there I can see the class, and I can see, well, this method right here is not covered because it's in gray, whereas the pieces in green are covered. And down over here, for example, I've got a larger method where part of it's covered, but basically just to here, you can see that we get to here, the test cases cover it, just up to this point right here where we return message, and we never have any code coverage for the code down below it. So it's kind of a neat feature. It's something that we are investing in In the future, there will be other features based on the effort and the work that we've done already in here. So this is kind of a cool thing. This gives you a preview of some cool features that are coming. And with that, I want to show you one other thing. So now we are in the final stages of getting authorization to release CodeRush for Roslyn. I expect it to come out today, is what I expect. We're just waiting on final bits of approval. But once it does, our plan is to make it available on the Visual Studio Gallery and to make it available for free. And the idea is that you'll get it, it'll run for about 45 days, but in about 30 days or less, we anticipate creating another update, and having updates coming out about every month as we move forward towards a final release of this. I wanted to just show you a recording I made, I think on Friday. Oops, hold on, let's bring it over here. And so this is going into the extension updates, and actually before I do this, let me go in here and I want to rewind to the beginning so you can see what's happening at the very beginning here. Okay. All right, so I'm seeing that there's two notifications up here, and then I click on the update. So the notifications are built into Visual Studio. Then it brings me in here and I click the update button. The download is remarkably fast, and there's an expiration date. So it's right there in the EULA. And then you install, you have to restart Visual Studio, and save any items, that sort of thing. And then it loads back up. And that's pretty much it. So the install, the update is pretty painless and pretty fast. And you're going to get notifications right inside of Visual Studio that tell you right in the upper right of the screen right here. So right now you'll notice right up here in the upper right of the screen, I'm bringing my mouse over the video, but right up in there, that upper right there, it still says 2. There are 2 notifications there. Just switch to 1. And the reason it does that a little late is because Visual Studio isn't checking every second. Okay? So now there's only 1 update out there for some other product that I've got. Okay? So that is the update process. Oops, let's close that down. And here's what we're working on for the next 30-day out release. We're working on finishing the smart templates, debug visualizer support for VB, bringing over more refactorings and code providers, and the clipboard history. So that's what we're seeing next. Now, I anticipate keeping people updated via the blog of what's coming, what we've done. And speaking of the blog, Rory, can you get a link to my blog and
certainly, yeah,
put it out there? And in addition to that, there's a blog that should be published right now and available on CodeRush for Roslyn, and also one on IntelliRush and the hierarchical filtering. If you could get those and put them out there, put them in the chat window, that would also be very cool.
Okay.
Okay. And with regards to what we're committed as we move forward, a really fast experience. I originally had fast and smooth, and I decided to borrow the Microsoft fast and fluid term. But the idea is that everything should be very, very fast, and clarity and discoverability should be easy to use, easy to discover. So that's what we're committed to as we move forward. For those of us or for people who came into CodeRush late in its lifetime, discoverability was kind of lost. We didn't really solve that problem well. And with this version, it's something that's important to us. We want to make it so it's easy for you to discover all of the features simply by having the product and not having to go outside and watch videos or anything like that. And we're also committed to lean memory use. So we're really, these are important. It's going to be fast, easy to use, and not take up a lot of memory. And that's what we're committed to as we get this release out. And with that, I'm going to say thank you and answer any questions if we have some.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. They've already been answered in the chat, but it's maybe worth reiterating some of them. We had a question whether or not we're going to have any extra support for JavaScript and TypeScript with our Roslyn release.
No.
The answer given here is basically no, we don't, because Roslyn is all about compiling C# and VB with a compiler written in C#. So that is where we're targeting our efforts at this particular time.
Right. Now there will be additional language support added as we move forward, but it's unlikely that we are going to be able to dedicate a lot of resources to putting anything significant any new significant features out for TypeScript or Java support. Now, we'll certainly support them, right? We'll support them. In other words, basic features that work across all languages will still work there, right? IntelliRush should still be available. All of those other things should still be working there. But it's unlikely to see any new major features for that in this release. When I say this release, I mean expected near the end of this year. Okay?
Sure. Looking through the other ones. To be honest, most of the questions were around that sort of area, so I think, unless anyone has got anything else they'd like to quickly add, I'll give you a few moments, certainly. One question I had, Mark, you mentioned that CodeRush Classic will still run, and can in fact run alongside CodeRush for Roslyn. I presume, obviously, that that's only obviously that you can only react together within Studio 2015 at this point.
Yes.
That means that we're making a choice, or sorry, the user is making a choice typically. So if you use CodeRush Classic, you will not have the new C# VB14 support, but you will have, for the precise moment at least, a broader selection of other features. Whereas you can use the CodeRush for Roslyn, and you get obviously all the benefits, but with slightly less features at the moment, as we work on pushing those into that release as well.
Yes, but you can have them both running at the same time. So it's possible to load CodeRush and have CodeRush for Roslyn running in Visual Studio 2015.
So what does that do where features are supported by both, like, for example, templates?
Yeah, you need to shut one off in one of the two, is what you need to do. And so if they're supported by both, I would shut it off in the classic version, just because, well, I don't know. I guess it depends. I guess it really does depend on what you want. I was just going to say in general, because as we move forward in time, we're expecting to make small improvements to those old features as we're bringing them across, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So,
sure.
But also I was just thinking, well, but you know, for templates, we still have some template support in Classic that we don't yet have in CodeRush for Roslyn, like Smart Return, Smart Constructor, those templates that are useful. So yeah, but you can use both. It's just that game of turning off which features you don't want. The cool thing is that CodeRush for Roslyn is pretty painless with regards to memory use and time. So it's not like it's going to add a lot to your system to have it in addition to using CodeRush Classic.
Okay. One question, we're obviously going to be releasing more and more versions. As you say, once a month we're certainly hoping to release an additional update, and you'll see those in the notifications. What is our sort of release target? Are we planning to simultaneously ship with Studio?
No, because I suspect that Studio is going to come out before we go final.
Okay, fair enough.
However, when Studio ships, it's pretty likely that we'll have an update available out on that you'll see right up there in your notifications. We'll probably have one whenever that does ship. There'll probably be one for that, and not because necessarily anything's broken or anything's changed. It's just likely that that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting that we're going to have these up pretty quickly. So yeah, I would just be looking for that, looking for that change there every once in a while. Giving us your feedback, letting us know, what's not working for you, what you like, what you'd like changed, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And it looks like you got the. Did you get the chat?
I have. I'm unable to actually interact with that at the moment. That's being posted by one of our colleagues.
Okay, so somebody's going to get that in there. All right. Okay. So yes, sounds good. Any other questions? Are we done?
There does not appear to be anything new beyond that at the moment.
Okay. So I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's interested in taking a look at this. Look to the blog or look for an update to my blog and look for me to tweet out. It's Miller Mark at. Sorry, let me say that again. It's at Miller Mark on Twitter. I can type that in here as well. You can follow me, and I will be posting about that as soon as we get permission to let this out. So if you're interested in seeing that and getting that, downloading it, and giving it a try, you'll be able to do that. Okay?
Good stuff. All right, Mark. Thank you very much.
All right, Amanda, back to you.
And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Mark and to Rory. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye, everybody.